The 64th book that I completed in 2023 is Midnight's Children by Salman Rushdie. This is the first Rushdie novel that I have ever read. It is, of course, on many top 100 lists, top 100 books of the 20th century lists. It was written in the early 80s, and its scope is wide. And I can see why it's on those lists. I give it a B plus. It is a lengthy book. I think it's the kind of book that's probably best read in a book club. It does have a confusing, complex, not necessarily confusing, but a complex narrative structure. It is not a book to listen to because the narrator of the book, Salim Sinai, stops mid-sentence very often, and he's also interrupted by the person that he is telling the story to, and there's no indication of that within the novel. You can only see it, right? So when the paragraph shifts, you know that the speaker has shifted, and so it doesn't make for a good listen at all. It's pretty confusing. It's wide in its scope. It's a novel that is meant to teach us a lot about India, especially Indian independence from about 1940 through about 1975 or so. This book charts those years. It helps, I think, to know a little bit about Indian independence before you read this book. But I would imagine that you'd get a lot out of it even if you didn't know anything about Indian independence. I give it a B plus because while it is on those top 100 lists, and I totally understand why, and I think that it deserves to be there because of its complex narrative and because of the scope and because it's this book that is sort of like the Moby Dick of Indian literature. But in terms of story, it's not that compelling. The conflict is sort of difficult. The central conflict, it would be difficult to pinpoint, and the characterization, at least of everybody except maybe the main character, the narrator, is kind of left in the dust. So this is really a book that's about history and a book that's about structure more than it is about plot. And so it's not the kind of book, just like, again, like Moby Dick, it's not the kind of book that you curl up with before going to bed and read a few pages. It doesn't work that way at all. This is a book to be studied. It is worth it, especially if you're wanting to learn about India. This is definitely a book that's worth reading, and I do recommend it, even though I'm only giving it a B plus.